So, Jalen, there's a lot to discuss here. Now, number one, I want to explain a little bit about the bill. It doesn't allow colleges to pay athletes. It allows college athletes to be paid for their name, their image, and their likeness. Now, this is just the first step in a long journey to sort of get college athletes actually paid. But what do you think about Newsom going on the shop and signing this in front of that kind of company?
I think it's a groundbreaking moment. Shout out to LeBron, Mav, and Rich. I saw them all in the clip. But a journey starts with a single step. And for me, this is just that. A lot of states are now going to truly learn about their governors when you realize that they're not going to be necessarily on board to sign this deal. And here's why. The members of the NCAA get millions and billions of dollars off the likeness of collegiate athletes. They've been doing it since the beginning of time. I introduced the term for public consumption that I felt like it was like indentured servitude. Because as somebody that played 3 years in college, if you want to talk about dollars and cents that would or could have been generated by a group of individuals playing basketball, the Fab Five will have the high score on the video game. Imagine if things like long shorts, black shoes, black socks were able to be trademarked. The term Fab Five has been used constantly over and over again. Imagine if we owned that. We would have been a precursor to what people like LeBron are now able to do. Own their likeness and be paid and compensated for who they are and their talents. But here's the thing I'm looking to see if it's gonna happen. Where are the colleges on this? It's one thing for the state, for the governor to sign the bill. It's gonna be another thing for UCLA, USC, and all of the schools in California to not accept the rules they have to abide to be a part of the NCAA. Remember, schools are members of the NCAA, and players sign letters of intent to play at the school. Once you sign that letter of intent, you fall under all of the governance that comes with those rules. So that's the part that, to me, is gonna get a little messy, and that's the part I wanna see if it gets ironed out sooner than later.
Well, I'm glad you brought this up, because if you just read the headline and you don't read the story, you're thinking like, oh, this is great. The California governor signed a bill and now players can be paid for their likenesses. Well, not really. This is scheduled to go into effect in 2023, and it gets messier than that. The NCAA will likely challenge this in court and try to push those court proceedings as long as possible. And exactly as you mentioned, in order for this to be taken into effect by a school, UCLA comes to mind, USC comes to mind, Cal comes to mind, all those big schools in California, they essentially at some point would have to secede from the NCAA. The implications from that are even bigger. And what does the Pac-12 do? They've got some schools in the state, some schools out of the state. So at the surface level, you're like, oh, you know what? This is great. NCAA athletes can now get paid for their likenesses in California, but it's not that simple. This is exactly what you said. This is a step. This is a single step on the journey to get to where we want to be with college athletes being paid. But it is that, a step. And when you have taken one step, you say, what's next? Who else is going to take a step? The next steps are other states looking at what California did and potentially passing legislature similar to build a groundswell that pressures the NCAA into accepting this into their own governance. What do you think happens next? Like, what's the timeline with this bill?
I'm not as optimistic as many people are that the NCAA is going to cave to the groundswell, because money never sleeps. And for so very long, they did not have to share it. And they oversaw the likeness and basically control how players are able to govern themselves once they become collegiate athletes. They all have separate deals with the NCAA. Their conferences, their contracts, their television contracts, their endorsements. Those schools aren't going to necessarily want to give up that money from the NCAA and, in theory, become independent so that players can benefit off of their likeness. And here's something else you're going to learn about your favorite college head coaches. A lot of them don't want the athletes to be able to do it either. They're just not saying it just yet.
Another thing I want to make very clear about this, in case you just read the headline and not the story, this does not mean that the college athletes can get paid by the institutions in which they play for. That doesn't mean that these institutions that make millions, if not billions of dollars based on the hard work and effort of these athletes are going to be paid those athletes directly. This allows these athletes to get money other ways via sponsorships and using their likeness in video games and endorsements and whatnot, which still, in my mind, is where we need to get. We need to get to a place where the institutions pay the players for the money that they make.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports, highlights, and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus right now.